Hey. Welcome back to another episode of My Introvert Thoughts with me, Skorpyen November here. Hey, how you doing? I hope you are doing well, feeling good, all of the things. But I don't want to prolong the intro because we have a guest today. But before I get into that, I want to make sure that I let you know that we do have merch available. Yes, we have merch. We have some new things in the store. So make sure you click the link in the description for this episode. And you can always email the podcast, myintrothoughts@gmail.com. And you can keep up with the podcast on our social media at My Intro Thoughts. So I wanted to make sure that I said that piece before we get into this episode. Now, the guest this episode is Genie Dawkins. Genie is a podcasting luminary known for her acclaimed show, The Parenting Cipher, where she brings parents of special needs children together to share their journeys and insights. With over 2 decades of experience as a parent advocate for special needs children, Genie's empathetic approach and engaging interviews have touched the hearts of listeners worldwide. Her mission extends beyond the microphone, as she also holds a master's in business administration and is a best-selling author, solidifying her role as a beacon of knowledge and support for families facing unique challenges. Now, one more thing before we get into this episode. This episode was a great episode and quite long. Genie and I kikied, laughed, talked some interesting things, had a great conversation. But if you have experience listening to this podcast, I try to keep episodes 30 minutes or less. This episode is a little longer than 30 minutes, but I tried my best to chop it up, to edit it so as to make sure that a lot of the nuance wasn't lost within the conversation, and to let you get a feel of how good it was talking to her and how much of a good time that we had. Also, in this episode, it seemed like my tongue weighed like 20 pounds. So trust me, I know I can hear it too. But I wanted to make sure that we're transparent here. We talk about the things. We don't act like things that are happening aren't happening. Remember, we talked about in previous episodes this season and last season that we're not going for perfection with this podcast. We're going for authenticity, realism, the great content, substance within the content that we're providing, and also relatability and representation. So I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge those things before we get into the episode and say, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed talking to Genie and presenting this episode to you. Also, Genie's information will be in the description as well. Make sure you check her out. But let's not prolong this any further. Let's go ahead and get into this episode of My Introvert Thoughts. As you guys can tell, I have a guest today, and it is Genie. Let me tell you how Genie and I met. We met at an Afrozen audio podcast festival a couple of years ago. And we had never met, never interacted before. And she walks in and sets up at the table because I was a little early. I was early.
You was early.
And so she walks in and she sets up the table, and it's like we instantly clicked.
Yes.
We just started talking. I guarantee you we talked at least 45 minutes to an hour just talking. And I don't know if you all remember last season we talked about recognizing your people, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes not so much. It was easy. And how sometimes when you connect with another introvert, you just start talking and you talk each other's ear off.
Yep.
That's what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good time. And to be quite honest, I was nervous. I was really nervous about that festival because I was going to be on the main stage.
Yes.
I wasn't moderating. I had to just be a panelist. And that was out of my comfort zone a little bit because I'm used to doing the moderating, controlling the flow. And I was nervous about that because I didn't know how I was going to go. And it went quite well.
It did.
And I have Genie partly to thank for that, for making me comfortable in that moment. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do fine here. If this is going to be the energy that I'm going to encounter for the duration of this, I'll be okay. So I also asked Genie during that talk if she wanted to be on this podcast. And mind you guys, it has been 2 years since season 1. And I was so nervous that she wasn't going to want to be a part of it anymore, or that she thought I was playing games. Because sometimes people will tell you stuff and they do not follow through at all. So I want to say, welcome, Genie.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, you know what? I am a stalker. I'm like a low-key stalker. So, like, I watch people, I do stuff, They could be a little bit introverted, tendencies. So, I have been following you on, what is it? One of the platforms. So, I was like, okay, well, yeah, I feel like I know you. I hear your voice all the time, right? So, it's like, oh, now I get to see you in person.
That is right. Oh, let me take this back. I said we had never interacted before. That is incorrect. I used to host Clubhouse chats, and Genie would pop in here and there, but we didn't have a great interaction. When I say great, I mean a lot.
In a one-on-one, though.
Yeah.
I think that's
true.
That's the part. It's like that one-on-one. But like you said, it's always, you will gravitate to people who are like you. So, of course, when you were like, do you want to be in a podcast? I was like, hell yeah.
And I am grateful for it because I was like, yes. Because on this podcast, although it's about my introvert thoughts, I want to share other introverts' thoughts. I want it to be a greater representation of introverts. We talk on this podcast about a lot of our similarities, but we're also different. We're not a monolith. We're not all the same. It's not a one size fits all. So I want different thoughts on here. I want to talk to other people. I want to kiki with other introverts too. So thank you.
You're welcome.
For coming on. And if you hear a little anxiety in my voice today, y'all, it's because we were having technical difficulties.
No,
and Genie came through. So thank you, Genie. I want to acknowledge that.
You're all good. I was thinking that today, well, actually, this morning I was feeling my anxiety is kicking in about something else. And I was like, oh, yeah, I talked to Skorpyen today about being an introvert. Wait till I tell her all the things that have been happening in introverted world.
Yes, I want you to save one of those stories for story time.
Okay.
Personal story. You will be the first person on here, other than myself, that is sharing a personal story.
Oh, okay.
Because usually when I have a guest, we're just talking, vibing it up, and having a good old time. But this time, I think we need to hear one of Genie's stories. Okay, Genie. One of the things that we talked about is being misunderstood within the world and people not understanding introverts. On a recent episode this season, we talked about boundaries in the workplace. Can you think of a time where you've had to set a boundary in the workplace and it was kind of uncomfortable for you? Or do you not have that issue of being apprehensive about saying, this is the boundary for me?
No, I'm very. I'm not anymore, but I used to be, right? But how can we say anxiety and apprehensiveness? It shows up differently for different people, right? So I've always been, setting boundaries with my body language. I set boundaries with my body language. Like, by so many feet, I don't want you in my space. I don't want you come in here. I don't want you to talk to me. I don't like you. I've always kind of like had that energy. But in a professional space, I came to find out that people thought I was mean. Right? I was mean.
Yes.
Because I had that body language. Because it's like, I'm not trying to hear. First of all, I'm trying to work. I'm not here to make friends. Right? I'm not here to gossip. I got a million and one things going on in my life, and it really was a toxic environment at that time. The job was a toxic. The very first day I got there, I was smiling. I was in, my 20s, my early 20s. I just got a job. My parents was proud of me because I got a government job, right? And I remember walking down the hall and I had a smile on my face, and an employee walked by me and was like, "You won't be smiling for long." And right. You won't be smiling for long. I'll never forget that. And that was the energy of, most of the employees. So, my boundaries kicked in, and I was about to be a supervisor, and someone, another supervisor was like, well, you need to be more approachable. You don't want people to think that you're mean. You need to be nicer. And I'm like, what? I am nice.
That's always the thing.
I am nice.
It's like if you're not walking around with a smile plastered on your face and asking every single person, how you doing?
Right.
How you doing
Good
today?
morning.
You okay?
Oh my goodness. So then I would use the door. Like, I would shut my door. Like, most people, you go in offices, like, you got an office, like, the door be open. I would shut the door. Like, that's how I had to start setting boundaries once I stopped doing it with my energy. I'm not, what's the word? How am I say it? I'm not confrontational. For me to be confrontational, it's like you really will have to be coming at me. I'm more of a body language person, right? And then it would really have to be like, it would have to be stacks of ish on top of me for me to just like you want some, come get some.
Yeah, I get it. I identify with all of that because I'm not usually a confrontational person. I've had to learn to confront things within the workspace, because I was always apprehensive that people would take it the wrong way, which they do.
Yep.
Which they do, right? But I had this one incident, because I'm a boundary person as well, right? And I have this thing, I don't touch anyone's desk when they are not there or they haven't given me permission to. So I have that same expectation. When I would leave work, I would have my desk set up a certain way at this certain place. I still do that. I put all my stuff together. It has to be very neat. There's minimal things on my desktop. I may leave a pencil holder with pens that I don't mind people using, and a notepad or something. So if someone needs to leave me a note, they ain't got to ramble through my stuff, right? I come to work this one day, and the receptionist, she pulls me aside because she knows how I am. And she's like, so-and-so was in your desk this morning. I was like, why? She was like, I don't know. And I'm like, there's nothing in my desk that there are not backup files to, that everyone has access to. Anything inside my desk is personal to me. So I immediately went to him and I was like, hey, why were you at my desk this morning? I was like, there's no reason for you to be inside my desk. Well, that's company's desk. Oh. That's company's property. I said, well, I'm responsible for that property while I work here. It is leased to me. Do you know that man did not speak to me for almost a month? And he also went to my direct supervisor, but thankfully my supervisor had my back.
Right. It's just interesting. I mean, even thinking about, like, when we talk about being cordial, even when I was in high school, and I went to high school, like, oh my God, I think it took me like an hour on the subway to get to school. And, you know, back then school started around 8 o'clock. And I would be in the building going in up the stairs, and it would be always this one teacher, and he would always be like, good morning. And I'll be like, oh my God, like, it's too early for interaction. It's too early for you to be talking to me. What's so good about it? Right? What's so good about it? And then you want to have a conversation, and it's just like, everyone is not smiling all the time. You know, everyone doesn't feel like that's necessary. But there is also a thin line with, you know, with introverts. We are constantly protecting ourselves. Once again, I'm going to reiterate, we don't know that our behaviors are to protect ourselves and peace of mind, but we are. And the thing is, I've never necessarily been a morning person. Do I like the mornings? Yes. I don't want nobody talking to me. I need transition.
Sometimes I just don't want to talk.
That part. I need to get my energy together for what I know is coming for the rest of the day. A lot of interaction.
That is it. That is the main thing that I don't think people understand about introverts, is that we have to mentally prepare ourselves for dealing with the world.
Yep.
We do, even if it's just conversation, because we're expressing energy that way. It's like we're pouring from our full cup, sometimes a half cup if we haven't recalibrated, and that's draining. Extroverts get energy from their interaction, and so they think everybody is like that. No. And if you're not like that, they think there's something wrong with you. And that's the problem.
It's and they keep trying. I'm gonna say it. And the thing is like everything, my whole spirit, everything is telling you like just give me space. And because extroverts get that energy from other people, you are consistently trying to be in it, and it's not working for me. And you're making me mad. Now you're making me irritated. And I was having a good day.
Yes. It's like just because I'm not smiling and all my teeth aren't showing, don't mean I'm upset.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean I have a problem. I could be having a good old time, but looking at my face, you wouldn't be able to tell that sometimes. Allow me to show up in the world in the best way that I feel comfortable. Allow me to do that without me having to have a public service announcement.
Exactly.
Without me having to say, hey, everybody, attention please.
Right.
I'm an introvert. So if you don't see me smiling, don't mean I'm mad.
Right.
But yeah, I have had to set boundaries in the workplace, and sometimes it's not as easy as others, depending on the workplace. Just be honest, but tactful, of course, to set up those boundaries. One question that I have that I like to ask guests, Genie, is when did you first know or become aware that you were an introvert?
When I was an adult, I actually think it was. So I used to be, getting back into like metaphysical, so crystals, holistic lifestyle, things like that. And I came across an article or a book, and actually I think it was talking about Aquarians really, and they were talking about the extroverted Aquarian and the introverted Aquarian. And that is when I realized, I was like, oh, I see I'm an introvert. And it was like, okay, it was eye opening for me, but I was loving it because it's like validation, you know. You know what I'm saying? It's
exactly.
And I'll also say that sometimes it can be, if you have a family and you are a family of introverts, then when you're out in the world, sometimes you feel like a little bit like an alien, because you don't have that desire to like be connecting with everybody all over the place. But in my family, everybody is an introvert except my father. I have like three brothers. So everyone's an introvert except my brother and my dad, who happen to be Leos. Like, they're the only ones in my family. So when I found out what an introvert and an extrovert was, I was like, oh my God, it is so true. So true. So in my family, when we get home, everybody would go in their room. Everybody would go in their room. And then like when you kind of get yourself together, you would go in the common space. But if we only had one TV, so if we got home early and I wanted to watch TV, we'd be in a common space, and that daggone Leo be up in the space, in your face, trying to siphon all the energy. And it would make me so mad. I would get so mad, man. And I would go to my room until I bought a TV to be in my room. But it was like once I had that definition, I felt validated. You know what I'm saying? Because like you know, but you don't know. But when someone gives you a definition of something, of your behaviors that you may feel, like, how can I put it, in mainstream? So mainstream, like, most attention is on the extrovert. But then another misconception about introverts is that, well, people think, well, introverts, y'all don't talk, y'all don't really do much, like y'all in a corner. But that's not true. Like, we can turn on when we need to turn on, but it's about how we get our energy. We don't get our energy from being around a lot of people, because it's like like you said, it's like somebody turns on a faucet. We just flowing, and we need to turn off the faucet, and we need to be by ourselves. Because my kids, they like, oh, mom, you're extrovert. I'm like, not really. No, I'm not. Like, I'm real clear. And that's like, as Skorpyen was saying, it's important of setting boundaries, because you have to protect that introvert spirit. It's the flow of energy. So once I got that definition, I rocked with it all day and every day.
Exactly. It's the validation to know that there's nothing wrong with you.
That's right.
There are, roughly 45% of the world introverts.
Yep.
That it's just a simple matter of how our brain works.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
But it's the stigmas. I'm going to say stigmas, but I'm going to say it's what people call you, what people say to you when you're not aware that you are introvert, that makes you feel like something's wrong. So it's that time someone says to you, why are you being antisocial? Right? Because you're in a room full of people. Why are you being antisocial? Why are you on the wall? Why your face look like that? Right? Oh, you don't like people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, I don't know nobody.
All the things.
I don't know nobody in here. And that's another thing I think that people misconstrue, is how we can set boundaries, or when we're done, like, our tone isn't always aggressive, right? Our tone could just be like straight, just be straight, and people just don't like the words that you saying out your mouth. Like with you and the guy at your desk.
Mm-hmm. I'll be the home of Genie. He ain't talk to me.
Right. And then you're like, I don't know about you, but me, I would be like, oh, well, you the one with the problem, not me. You cannot talk to me for life, all I care. And I'm not mad.
It's fine with me.
Right.
You done hurt my feelings.
Shoot. Give me some peace of mind now.
I'm going to go and make a joke about it. I'm going to make a joke about it. And it's going to be funny to me. And it's going to be a running joke to see how long you don't talk to me. I don't think people realize that we are quite funny. We're humorous. And just because you don't get to see it doesn't mean it's not there. And the things that you get mad about, and the things that offend you about us,
right,
unintentionally on our behalf,
it's funny.
It's funny.
It's so funny. Like, it's like, ha ha. Oh, you mad? You mad?
He mad. Big mad.
Oh, you know he mad at me, right? And then on top of that, it be the internal conversations that we having in our head. You know what I'm saying? So people like, oh, what you laughing at?
Yeah.
Well, I'm laughing out myself and my thoughts. But now you kind of ruin it because you want to be part of it, and you can't
tell you this
because you're not gonna get it.
You are not gonna get it.
You're not gonna get it, and if I try to explain to you, you're gonna be like, "Oh, you're an asshole," right? Exactly. I don't know how many people have heard that one, right? You're an asshole. Like, okay, all right. Yeah. Now at my age, I'll take that. That's all right, because guess what? Guess who all my friends are? Because like Skorpyen said, like for like, all my friends are assholes too. And we live in a beautiful world assholery, okay?
Yes. Because while we're sitting there quiet, we're having this whole dialogue in our head. We're peeping everything. And I'm just like, And so when something goes down, I'm like, I knew it.
Right.
I knew it was coming.
I saw that coming a mile away.
Mm-hmm. Before we get out of here, we could make this episode like 2 hours, but I'm not going to, y'all, because y'all know I promised y'all episodes that are less than 30 minutes. But this one gonna be slightly over because we gotta get Genie's personal story. She shares some of them a little bit, but we need a personal story about being an introvert, whether you were rewarded, whether it was some type of conflict, whether it was a misunderstanding, what have you. Or when you came to the realization that something is happening because you are an introvert. This is Genie's personal story.
That wasn't. I didn't want to talk about any of that, but I would say, as an introvert, when I was married, right, a lot of things were happening, and I was in an internal conversation. Well, I just need to do better, right? If I just do this, then, then our situation will be different. If I just make more money, then that will alleviate, my husband getting fired from his job, but all of these are internal conversations. Like, I never had an external conversation with him about, well, this is what's going down. This is how you're acting because of the situation. And, maybe we can talk it out. Maybe we can work it out, Instead, I was just reacting. I was having like internal dialogues and like literally leveling up like the whole family, trying to get us back to even kill, right? Because as an introvert, we are having these internal conversations, and then we are executing the plans that we're having with ourselves. So, with that being said, I had like two step kids that I had gotten them into private school on scholarship. I was pregnant with my first biological son. My husband got fired. My car got repoed. Right. We're in like this 2-bedroom apartment, and I am in this space of like, just keep on doing better. And that's when I became a supervisor. I think I mentioned that. And, and then I was told, well, people think you're mean, and you have to be nice. And, and I put that face on, I put it on a little bit, then I realized, whoa, people think I'm a punk out in these streets. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just like real nice, and I'm really good at mitigating, so then I had to come a little bit harder. But it was a time of like, I lived in perpetual gratitude. Like, anytime I thought of, all the way things were falling apart, I was just grateful. But, in hindsight, we ended up getting a divorce. But in hindsight, if I had been more vocal, with what was going on, with the added fact, when you listening to what I'm saying, everybody, all of these situations, they're pulling energy. I'm in the job I had was social services, so I'm dealing with people who are trying to get their food stamps, trying to get their medical, right? I was a supervisor, working for the state. Cases aren't getting done, I'm doing the cases, I have my kids in 2 different states. I'm in DC, they're in Virginia and Maryland. I don't have a car, I just had a baby. All of these things for an introvert, it's a lot. So can you imagine, like, when did I get a chance to gather my energy? And I would get the chance to gather my energy when I was on the bus, when I was on the subway, when I was walking at 5 o'clock in the morning to the bus stop. And I just was like, I'm so grateful that I live in a city with a bus, right? That is those moments that, as an introvert, we don't expel a lot, if that makes sense to everybody, right? We don't, when we're going through things, even in relationships with people, we're not pouring out. Even when stuff is wrong, we're kind of like trying to figure it out. Like, because if we can figure it out on our end, then it'll be all right for everybody. That's that moment as an introvert that I realized, in hindsight, that, yeah, I mean, real talk, y'all. Like I was I would say trooper. I was a trooper for real. Like I ended up getting my master's degree. You know what I'm saying? I got a house, like all the things. But it wasn't until after I got out that moment that I went to reflect, that I realized that how being an introvert sometimes it helps us. Because I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if I wasn't an introvert. But we do have our how can I say? I don't want to say expiration. We can grind ourselves all the way down to the grit where we have nothing else in us, and we don't realize it because we're grinding. And I got sick, 2 years ago, and one of the main things that hit was the fatigue. And I realized how being an introvert helped me, because when I got diagnosed as an introvert, I got diagnosed not as an introvert, but just got diagnosed. But it was my introverted tendencies that saved me. So the unconscious introverted tendencies. So I am a podcaster, y'all. I would literally sleep for 2 days before I would get on the mic for 45 minutes. This was not something that I was like intentionally thinking about, but this is the introverted tendencies that we all have that help us survive in the world. And once I got to a point where I was really digging into everything, it all made sense. Like when you're in it, you're in it. I would challenge everybody to kind of look back at, like Skorpyen says, different situations that you came out of from an introverted lens, and look at yourself and be like, yo, man, I'm a beast because I'm an introvert. I might not have made it if I wasn't an introvert, but also these are the lessons I learned. And in my relationship with my husband, I learned that there are times where you need to say your thoughts out loud, in any shape, way, or form.
Ooh. That was a lot.
I know.
And very powerful about our abilities, our strengths, our weaknesses, ways that we can improve as introverts. And just a couple of things that I took from that and that we talk about here is the recalibration.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're getting that solitude, getting the solitude that you need to recalibrate so you can show up whole, so you can take care of yourself. Because if you don't, you can run yourself in the ground, and then that manifests in different ways.
Yep.
And sometimes physically, and definitely mentally. And also, considering that we are introverts, we keep a lot of things to ourselves, and we try to think through them on our own, when we actually need to be talking about some of it and letting it out instead of holding it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then that in turn affects us mentally,
yep,
and physically and emotionally.
Yep.
So show up for yourself. If for no one else,
Yep.
show up for yourself so you can show up whole for the people you love in this world, and for yourself.
Facts.
And for yourself. Genie. I have enjoyed this conversation, and I wish it could be longer. And I think there's more that we could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's more. So I need to have you back.
Oh, most definitely. Then I can tell you my other stuff, but nah. Listen, I enjoy being on your podcast. Ironically enough, my son has been in an introvert-extrovert conversation. So he gets in the car, and like that's the first thing he wants to talk about is how people don't understand introverts need energy.
Isn't it cool?
It's so cool
when other people pick up on it.
So cool. It is so cool. And I just want to thank you for having me on your show. anytime. I'll be glad to come back. And for the audience, in my podcast, I always tell people, be patient with yourself and your child. But in this
Tell the
case,
people the name of your
the podcast is called the
Yes.
Parenting Cipher, and it's for families with children of color who have special needs. So I always tell people, be patient with yourself and your child. But in this space, I want to tell everybody, be patient with yourself, right? And be patient with others. It's not so much that people don't want to connect with us and love us. It's just that they don't understand. So sometimes if you listen, if you really like that person and you want them in your space, because let's be real, we don't want everybody in there, especially people trying to siphon our stuff. Okay, but if you really want to connect, be patient with them, talk to them. Yo, man, look, send them a text, a DM, or an email about introverts and extroverts. How about that?
Yes. Be like, read this.
Right.
Pick up what we put down.
Exactly.
I thank you so much, Genie, for your patience before we even started recording, for your help getting this recording, for your transparency during this conversation, for your willingness to share. And y'all, this has been another episode of My Introvert Thoughts. You can always email your thoughts, questions, and kudos to Genie by emailing the podcast, myintrothoughts@gmail.com. It's like my tongue is feeling heavy as hell today. Anyway, and you can always follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at My Intro Thoughts. And you can follow Genie as well. I'll put her information in the description for this episode. And make sure you check out the Parenting Cipher. See, heavy ass tongue. Anyway, until next time, be blessed, be kind, and choose happy. Peace now.